And good morning to you. It's so important for us to sing our joy and remember to do that, especially now. Yeah. And even as I'm sitting there, both in the first service and this service, singing about joy, I can't help but feel the heaviness of my heart with the news of yet another shooting in Dayton, Ohio, by a man wearing body armor and carrying a big gun, just 13 hours after the shooting in a Walmart in El Paso, and just days after the shooting at the outdoor festival in Gilroy. So it makes this month's focus celebrating and appreciating other nations and people even more important to me. So I've been thinking about that. And our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, he wrote a piece that was published in the Science of Mind magazine many years ago, describing how we would show up in the world as a result of being students of the science of mind. Here's what it says. Our religious outlook is a universal one. There is tolerance in its concept and inclusion, because the infinite is all-embracing. So, we work in harmony with all religious beliefs, since each is in his or own way seeking the ultimate cause, the divine. And here's the sentence that really is on my mind at the moment. The one who understands the science of mind will be tolerant, kind, and sympathetic. So I'm stuck on that sentence at the moment. Tolerant. Tolerance is good. And I'm wondering today if we can do better than that. I mean, tolerance means to be willing to allow something, even when I don't agree with it, and I don't want it, and I don't like it. Well, that's good as far as it goes. And I wonder if we can do better than that. I wonder if Dr. Ernest Holmes were alive today, reading the same news that we are reading today, if he would expand that idea of tolerance a little bit. I'm guessing he would. I'm guessing yes. I'm guessing that he would invite us, the students of science of mind, because we're the ones who are studying oneness and gratitude and compassion and so on. I'm guessing he would invite us to ask, is tolerance deep enough? Does it go far enough for somebody who practices science of mind? I think he would invite us to go further. I think he would invite us to go into celebrating differences, to rejoice in them, because they are the natural state of the universe. It's what's happening. Celebrate diversity, the diversity of creation. Call it holy. And to be curious about our world and not afraid of it. After all, our science of mind teaching is about that. It's about oneness. And it's about how from the one comes the many, and that's holy. It's about how there is a thread of divinity that connects us all. And it's about how loving kindness is a particular kind of connecting energy. It's about the sacredness of all life. And it's about how that sacredness is equal in all people. And it's about the power that we have to help or to harm. And then as I get clearer on what my chosen spiritual path is all about, and it must become clearer to me that racism, sexism, xenophobia, the fear of people who are different, and all the other phobias of society can't be in alignment with the teaching of science of mind. So for me, a student of science of mind, I see that tolerance may not be deep enough. I mean, it's a good starting point. Yet as my interest in living a spiritual life grows, a life deeply rooted in spiritual truth, the more that happens, the more I realize I want to go deeper, past tolerance. You see, I realize I can tolerate someone I hate. But that doesn't make me a practicing religious scientist. When I abandon hate to the best of my ability on an ongoing basis, the more I abandon hate, the less useful tolerance is to me. So I rework that last sentence for myself to expand it a little bit, to say the one who understands the science of mind will be inclusive and loving and compassionate, and I can add appreciative and curious and welcoming and fearless and helpful and caring and life-affirming, and you can probably add a whole lot more to it. And every time we add something, checking carefully if what we come up with is consistent with the teaching of radical oneness. Now, when I claim this is my path, this is my chosen spiritual path, then I can take a stand for it unashamedly and say, yes, I believe in the power of love-fueled thinking. I believe that change can come through elevating our vision to something greater. Yes, I believe we can together, cooperatively, create a world that does better than tolerate. Oh, to take a stand for that. We've been very cautious about taking a stand as a movement. We haven't really come out and boldly proclaimed, this is who we are. Now, I wonder about the reason for that. My therapist says that I am conflict avoidant. That's true. I like to maintain positive relationships with people. I like to be seen as nice, good, harmonious, I don't like to rock the boat, The problem I'm learning with that approach to life is that when something happens, something that I don't like, even though I saw it coming, but I didn't say anything because I want to avoid the conflict. And then when it happens, then I realize my avoidance helped it happen. I became part of the problem when I didn't speak what I stand for. I can see that now. I think our movement, Centers for Spiritual Living, may be a little conflict avoidant sometimes. Yeah. We are very cautious about taking a stand. I don't know why. Maybe someone will disagree. Maybe someone will not feel included, So we like to maintain this overall positive attitude and atmosphere. We like to be seen as the nice ones, the good ones, the harmonious ones. And we're learning the problem is the same on an organizational level as it is on an individual level. The problem with that approach is that when something happens, no one will know what we stand for unless we say so. Clearly, kindly, compassionately. And when we don't say what we stand for, we might inadvertently become supporters of the way things are. I've been looking around among the emails exchanged by my colleagues looking for support and inspiration, and I got this one piece from a colleague, and you can just feel the pain in the words, but I love that she's taking a stand. She says, my biggest fear right now is that we as a nation are getting used to mass shootings and letting it become our new normal. There are no simplistic solutions, she writes, but we need to tackle the issue, eyes and ears and hearts wide open. This isn't right, and we need to demand that our leaders address all the components of this situation, and we can't let anyone off the hook because of finger pointing and budget constraints. If it is not safe to go to an outdoor festival, a mall, or Walmart, for God's sake, then we are not the land of the free. And if we can't speak up and demand our safety, then we are not the home of the brave. I may be conflict avoidant, but I love it when somebody else takes a stand. Don't you love it when somebody reveals where they stand? It emboldens me. It gives me the strength to explore my own position. So now I'm learning from this. Disagreement isn't a terrible thing. People can disagree and still love each other. Who knew? Here's the thing. Disagreement is survivable. But being shot at an open-air festival or in a bar or in a Walmart turns out is lethal. Maybe, and I say this respectfully because I may be wrong. I may be wrong about this. But maybe we as a movement are conflict avoidant sometimes because of something our founder taught us. Dr. Ernest Holmes taught us, he said, we are to stand for something and against nothing. I think that's good as it goes, and I think we could be better, much, much better at being for something and coming out with what we are for, or at least getting super clear on how our faith tradition, the science of mind, teaches us to live in this world with these issues. And we don't have to agree about the solutions. We don't have to have the same opinion. We don't have to agree with one another. However, I think that we do have to ask, all of us, we have to ask the same questions. Like, what does this teaching of oneness, compassion, and love cause me to take a stand for? How does my faith tradition, the science of mind, promote liberty and justice for all? Many, many years ago, our movement, our national movement, had its national conference in Chicago, I believe. And at the time, one of the topics on the table for discussion was whether or not, as a movement, we should make a statement of support in support of marriage equality. And in those times, it was called gay marriage. The statement was defeated, was voted down. Some people, including some spiritual leaders in the movement, objected to the statement. Some expressed fear of losing congregation members. Some said it was political and that we shouldn't have anything to do with politics. And in that moment, when we defeated the statement, we didn't stand for anything. To avoid conflict or disagreement. And by not making a statement, we communicated something very clearly to those who were affected. We tolerate you. Yeah, we tolerate what you're going through. That's why tolerance doesn't go far enough for me. And this is making me ask, what am I promoting, allowing, permitting when I don't take a stand for oneness, unity, and love? And if I ignore those who are unnecessarily oppressed or marginalized or maligned, am I being an embodiment of the teachings of universal kinship? I was heartbroken when our movement failed to make a supportive statement. I couldn't believe it was happening. I was astounded. The good news, and we have to fast forward to today, the Centers for Spiritual Living has come out with a bright, bold, unambiguous statement of affirmation and support for the LGBTQI community, which is in alignment with our teaching. Of course we would. Still, what stopped us back then from taking a stand? What got in the way? Some said, as I mentioned before, that it was political and that we should have nothing to do with politics. Well, here's something to chew on from Mahatma Gandhi in his autobiography. Those who say religion has nothing to do with politics do not know what religion is. You see, there is some misunderstanding about what we, as a spiritual center, may talk about. So I'd like to clear that up. The law does not prohibit a spiritual center from taking a stand, not just on marriage, but on racism, sexism, xenophobia, and every other issue facing our society. It is not illegal. It is not illegal for us even to talk about or comment on our government leaders. It is not prohibited. Indeed, some people say that it is the moral duty of the spiritual community to explore these topics, especially in the light of their spiritual teaching. So we can ask ourselves, how does science of mind cause me to show up for the issues of the day? We can ask, if oneness had an opinion about racism, what would it be? If unconditional love did something about one of the phobias, homophobia, what would it do? If the infinite, all-inclusive wisdom of the ages had a voice, what would it say? And what does it want to say through me? And then to listen for that answer. Because if it says to hate, it's not science of mind. If it says to not care, it's not science of mind. If it says to take care of myself first and above others, it's not science of mind. If it says to lie, it's not science of mind. If it says to live in fear, it's not science of mind. If it says to ignore those who are unnecessarily oppressed or marginalized or maligned, it can't be science of mind. To take a stand means I have to learn how to talk about these things with people who disagree. And to do that, I have to manage my conflict avoidance. I have to walk into my fear of disagreement. So I went to Psychology Today and found an article by Dr. Leanne Davey, and she gives tips for the conflict avoidant. And although this is framed for business teams, I found it very helpful. So imagine these are suggestions for a conversation you might have about human rights, for example, or about any one of the issues facing our nation. And the first tip she gives is express your contrary opinion as an and. For example, she says it's not necessary for someone else to be wrong for you to be right. She gives an example of a dialogue. I hear that you think we need to leave room in the budget for a customer event, and I'm concerned that we need the money for employee training. What are our options? I can get behind that, right? I can work with that. I can see how I can use that. The second is to use hypotheticals. If you don't feel comfortable, she says, being assertive, and I don't. Try asking your teammates to imagine a different scenario. I can work with that. For example, she gives, I hear your concern about getting the right salespeople to pull off this campaign. If we could get the right people, what might the campaign look like? Oh, I can get behind that. The third is to talk about the impact of actions rather than disagreeing with the plan. Help your teammates, she suggests, to think through the consequences by asking good open-ended questions about the impact. Okay, the suggestion is, we're contemplating launching this product to only our US customers. How is that going to land with our 2 big customers in Latin America? I can get behind that. I can apply this right away. And fourth, ask about the underlying issue. Because if you disagree with the proposed action, you could start a discussion by trying to understand the rationale. Because when you understand the reason for the action, it makes it spacious enough to consider other ways to attain the same goal. These are good strategies for me to have important conversations, and I can use these conversations to explore, where do I stand? I can also see that it's important for me to continue getting clearer on my spiritual beliefs so that I can speak from them to the issues of the world. And I'm practicing. I'm continuing to practice like this. I'm learning to embrace differences of opinion, differences in people and culture. I'm learning to work through my fear of disagreement because I believe in the oneness of all life. I believe there is a benevolent creative power in the universe that you and I can use to make positive changes. And so I'm not losing hope for my nation. Instead, I'm recommitting to see, imagine, and work towards a world that works a little bit better for everyone, as complicated as that might be. And I'm learning to align my language with love, even in very difficult conversations, because I believe the ultimate nature of reality is love, and that my work, our work, is to reveal that love. I believe that there is something intrinsically good about people, and that freedom is the birthright of every individual. So I know I must advocate for those who cannot advocate for themselves. I believe that the divine is infinite. And that encourages me to stop being afraid that there is not enough. Not enough love, not enough care to help each other. I believe forgiveness is one of the most significant ways of practicing compassion. And so I'm practicing forgiving myself and other people for missteps and even for very large errors. And I believe in the power of the word. And so I will not minimize the effects of words used cruelly. But I will rededicate myself to speak words into this world that reveal what I stand for and what I believe in and who I am. I invite you to breathe in with me for a little moment of spiritual practice. As you exhale, let your eyes close. As I settle into this moment, I bring my awareness to the serene knowledge that Spirit is present here. I'm deliberately attuning myself to that beautiful, enduring, and eternal one. Sitting in this awareness then, I open my thinking, I open my heart, I open myself to the peace of the divine that is permanently present and present here. I am opening myself to the love that I know unites all of creation. Spirit is present, fully, completely, now. This spirit of peace is who I truly am. This spirit of peace is the reality that I live in. This spirit of peace is the truth for all people and all sentient beings. And in this moment, I am accepting that peace, the peace of spirit, is at the center of my life and of all life. And I'm affirming this as the reality for all sentient beings everywhere. Living, breathing, moving in the presence of the divine. Peace is coming into clear focus in my mind right now. I feel it. I sense it. From this awareness of peace surrounding me and inside of me, I am reclaiming for myself and for all beings that we are intuitively guided into expressing from that knowledge of peace. I'm reclaiming for all the ability to look beyond the small self to the great truth. I reclaim for myself and for all the ability to know and to share the grace of God in all places, with all people. I reclaim for all clear thinking good decision making, especially for those who lead nations. I feel grateful for this moment of prayer, this moment of consciousness expanding. I'm grateful for the time to luxuriously grow my vision of a world in which peace prevails. I feel grateful for the ability to silently sit and let my imagination move beyond the appearances of how things are. And I am particularly grateful to know that these ideas and feelings of and words that are taking place in this prayer are being heard and responded to and acted upon by that which we call spiritual law right now. As I bring this moment of prayer to its conclusion, I remember that by myself, I do not know how to manifest everything that I have seen in my imagination or prayed about in my prayer. I do not know the exact pathway to harmony and peace and collaboration and cooperation. But there is something, I remember, in me, in us, that does know. And I yield to that. This allows me to begin to look outward for the signs of this prayer being answered. I am now on high alert for cooperation, harmony, and beauty. And I close by saying, and so it is. I invite you to take a deep breath in with me, followed by a sigh.